push off the speaker. Where are you sitting, love? Yeah.
Wait, can you see yourself here?
Why are you so upset? Hmm? You sure?
Is the mic open the mic too? Mic too?
Mm. Yes, my dear, my lover. How are you doing today?
Good.
Well, anyway, let's talk a little bit about everything. My name is Aton, as you know already.
Yes.
And you, if you might also tell me more about yourself.
I'm 25. I live in, well, I'll be 25 next month. I live in the U.S. I don't exactly know where because I've been gone for almost a year now, so I don't know where I'm going to settle when I get back.
But I like to ask more about that. But what is your name actually?
Natalie. My first name is Natalie, but I go by Lorraine.
Lorraine.
That's my middle name. My name is Natalie Lorraine.
Oh, that's beautiful. Lorraine, where do you come from? You sound American.
Yes, I'm from America.
Mm.
We haven't done like the whole trace your heritage yet, so I don't exactly know like the origins in Africa where my family comes from.
So you've not found your family tree, you mean?
Not yet. I mean, we found our family tree in America. We've traced that, but we haven't extended it towards the African continent yet. But it's in the process.
Yeah. Well, we know a lot about Americans that we know Americans are all that, quote, quote. But then we see a lot that is happening in America. People dying, killing black people. What is that? I don't know if you could enlighten me better about that.
And in what regard? Like, what do you mean as far as black people killing black people?
Yeah, that's what
What do you mean?
I mean, black people kill, no, not black people, police today killing black people a lot.
Police. Well, that's not really a new problem. The police have really been, and I'm not going to speak for all police because there's definitely people that go to work and do their job and, you know, live by the code that they have had to swear into. But there are a lot of police officers that do not value the lives of citizens, and at an alarming rate, black citizens and other minorities as well. So right now, what we're experiencing is with the help of smartphones and technology, these injustices are now being captured.
Right.
So it seems to the outsiders that don't live in America or live in America and do not research these kind of issues that it's just happening.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with this new social media and all the technology that is allowing people to see these issues that may not have seen them before is that even with this evidence, it is clear that the government still is excusing themselves for these types of issues. So it's like you know, if you watch this year alone, there's been more than 50 killings of mainly black males, but I mean, I'm sure there's definitely black women and children in that. There more in that number that didn't get televised.
Well, that is sad, but then now we know that the president of the United States of America, which we know already, we the Africans, we have a little bit of knowledge about that. We know that the president of the United States is Obama, who is a black man, and the wife is quite black, as I am myself.
Yes.
So do you mean that he turned aside of the eyes aside, not seeing what is happening to his own people's skin of color?
I think that Obama, I can say that I don't feel like he's doing what he should be doing for these matters, not because he's a black man, that's one part of it, but because this is a big injustice that has been going rampant in his nation for so long. I don't feel like he's addressing it properly, and he's been taking the stance of let's be peaceful. And I understand that is ideal. I think everyone wants to solve their problems in a peaceful manner where you can sit down with someone and be like, hey, you did this wrong to me. Let's work out a solution. But my ancestors and, my great-grandmother and even my aunts, because a lot of my aunts are in their 70s, they did it peacefully, so to speak. They did sit-ins. They went down to legislation.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to pass policies and laws. But it's at the point where we're tired.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot more needs to be done. And it's disheartening that our president doesn't seem to have a sense of urgency about this issue. Mm-hmm. And so people are going to take it into their own hands, which they've already done so, both with the government killing black Americans and with other black Americans retaliating or rebelling. Mm-hmm. And while the one thing that makes me really upset is when we have these issues where a black man has been killed and, thousands of black people in that community and then outsiders come in and do these peaceful protests and stand, in solidarity, and then like 5 people decide to break a window, and then all of a sudden that whole movement is now labeled the title of riot.
Right.
And I don't like that. I feel like it's disrespectful, and I'm not even wholeheartedly sure that the rioters were the people that were associated with this issue in the Baltimore riots. I'm speaking.
Right.
I know that the government does a lot of things to incite riots.
Right.
And I'm just not 100% sure that it was us that did all of that damage. I think maybe a few people, there's always going to be ignorant people in the group that just want to do something crazy just because. Right. But I do not believe that it was nearly as many as they perceived it to be or wanted us to believe.
Yeah, but can I ask a question? How old are you?
I will be 25 next month.
Yeah, you're 25. And then I want to know if people of your age, of your youth, let's say the new generation age now, are you telling me that you people have something to do, or how are you people going to make that impact on the system now in America that you can see on your time now that is happening? What do you think you can contribute to that to make a change, to bring a change to that system?
I think that we may not see the changes in my direct lifetime. I don't think at least the mass amount of changes that need to happen. I think my generation, I can only speak for myself, I can't speak for everyone, but people that I know, we go out, we vote, we make sure we vote in local and national elections like the presidency, but also voting for your school board, voting for your mayor, voting for your commissioner, making sure you're understanding the smaller elections, because that is where a lot of the mess happens, because they know that people are just going to wait another 4 years and show up at the polls and think that one man is going to make a change for all the funnel. It's a funnel system, the way that it's set up.
Right.
And I know that I do that, and also making sure that you volunteer and you educate yourself, you read, you make sure that you know what's going on in your community and globally. Right. That's all that you can do.
Right.
And also, we need to get more organized, because I think I can speak for the black community. We're very disorganized.
That is true. But then anyway, that's what we see even here. It's very difficult to see 5 or 6 black people together and they get along very well.
Oh, yeah.
That is a very difficult thing.
Yes.
But then in that case, but you sound very educated. We'll still come back to that point. It's very an interested point you raised there. You sound very educated. Did you all study there in America? Or
I did.
What do you do for living as now?
I completed my bachelor's degree at North Carolina A&T State University, which is a HBCU. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but in America they're called historically black colleges and universities, and they were basically brought upon by other black Americans or sometimes white people that wanted to help establish these institutions so we could learn, because of course at one point we weren't able to learn at the other institutions that were already available.
That's
so and we're also dealing with an issue where a lot of our HBCUs are closing down because they're losing money, and society seems to think that since we live in this quote-unquote post-racial society, that there is no need for HBCUs anymore. So a lot of the HBCUs are in a city where there are predominantly white institutions, as we call them in America, and they're trying to buy those schools and just make it one big school. And that's definitely an issue. And even though black people, as a whole, I think we could be more organized, I can say there are lots of organizations, especially HBCUs, that are organized, and it is a safe haven for black people to learn and grow and flourish and create solutions to the problems in their society.
Yeah, but then I hear a lot that America is a land of opportunity. And then when you are a black person living in America, for your case, you're born in America.
Right.
And then you feel this way. So what do you say to people who live in Africa, live in their homes and striving to come all the way to America?
I wouldn't say that America is not a land of opportunities. I would definitely say, traveling and speaking to other people of color, including blacks or Africans, so to speak, America is a good place to come, but do not come thinking that it is a mecca, because that it is not. While they do afford people of color opportunities, a lot of that is guilt because of what they put our ancestors through.
Mm-hmm.
And we have so far to go. It's like affirmative action, was put in place. Now they have these quotas where you have to have a certain amount of people of color in your establishments, but then it becomes like, okay, we need two black people, we need 2 Asians, and it's almost like, okay, that's enough, but you're still discriminating against these people. And I myself have mainly worked in predominantly white companies where I was the spokesperson for all black people, and I didn't like that. I don't like that. I don't mind voicing my opinion for my people, but I know that everybody has a different opinion, beliefs, and all those, so I can only give so much of that opinion. But it's just blatant racism a lot of the times, and not everybody that I work for is racist, no, but a lot of the times they don't know they're being racist because it's been so many decades of propaganda.
But that's another thing there, because a lot of white people seem to think that blacks are just finding a way of nagging in their problems and saying we've been racist or point. I don't know how you see that, because I see it differently, but why you think they say that, most of those things?
I think they have been kind of thinking that we live in a post-racial society, and a lot of people who seem to think that way are newer generations, like I think we want to call it 3rd and 4th generations. They don't feel like they're directly responsible for what their great-grandparents or whoever did. Mm-hmm. So they're thinking, just like some blacks don't think that we need to be fighting as hard as we should too, because they're like, oh, well, we're better now. At least you can get jobs and you can become millionaires, but yes, we're still discriminated upon. We don't get paid the money we should. We still, a black person that's maybe, there was a story, a black woman was a CEO of a company, mm-hmm. and she got put in a mental asylum because they didn't believe that a black woman could hold a title like that. They thought she was literally crazy because she was driving a very, very expensive car, and they asked her, what do you do? And she told them her position, and they were like, no, can't be, locked her up.
Is that in a movie or in
No, you can look it up. I can't think of her name right now, but I saw it a couple weeks ago.
But that is in America.
That happens all the time. I mean, I have a smaller, instances in my life. I've dealt with a lot of racism. My high school in America, we have honors and AP level classes, higher level classes, and I mean, there was plenty of times where I would come in and some other person, normally a white person, be like, are you lost? Are you sure you should be in this? I'm like, yeah, check my schedule. I'm smart. Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm actually intelligent. And I know plenty of black people that have dealt with that in high school, in the street, wherever, just not being good enough because of your skin color. They can't fathom to believe that you are anywhere near where they are or above.
But when you say things like that, it baffles me. But again, I want to come back a little bit in another question I have here for you. But I heard something about North Korea. If you like the Korean, there are people who actually does not like anyone, as I think. It seems to be only in themselves. But what took you so far to North Korea?
I went to South Korea, but
South Korea.
South
yeah.
Korea. I
So they are the
can't.
same
You
thing.
can go to North Korea,
Mhm.
but it's very hard to get there, and I personally would not want
Okay,
to
in South Korea, what was that?
go. South Korea, I wanted to go away from the culture that I was accustomed to, and really learn about another culture.
Mhm.
And it seems like the exact opposite of the American culture would be the Asian culture. So I went there thinking, I already knew that they were racist and prejudiced and all that. I kind of knew that before the hiring process, just reaching out to other people that were already there.
Mm.
But I still had an open mind. And Korea was definitely a learning experience for me.
Hmm.
I don't think I would go back.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, I'm sorry to say of course because
Well, no,
I actually have not been there, but I wouldn't judge them anyway.
I just felt, I feel marginalized in America in my own way. Like, do definitely feel like an outsider a lot of the times.
Mhm.
But in Korea, it was very, very apparent that I was an outsider. And not just because of my skin color, but because I was very outspoken. And I didn't just let whatever you say go. If I realized that it was affecting me, I would let you know.
Right.
And that culture is not really set up for those type of interactions. A lot of times, if your boss tells you you have to be somewhere at 7 o'clock and he tells you at 6:30, you're supposed to drop all your plans and go to that dinner at 7 o'clock. I myself will be like, no, you didn't tell me beforehand. I know things come up. If it was something like they just found out, then that's one thing.
Right.
But knowing that something like this has been discussed, at least among higher up people, for like weeks, and you tell me 30 minutes before, I'm going to have a problem with that.
Right.
And that was my main issue with Korea. It was the business culture. If I would live in Korea again, it would be just like I would have loads of money and I can just do whatever. But working in the Korean business culture is difficult for me. I think a lot of people, actually I know a lot of people that I talk to, they don't love it, but they tolerate it. But it's a lot of things. I realize what I can't and can tolerate. And it got to a point where I feel like what I stood for as a human being was being jeopardized. So I realized it was time for me to go.
Okay, feeling that way is already very bad. Let's say compare Korea and America.
Right.
Where would you prefer?
I would prefer America because I know I have support
Right.
in a way where I can kind of get away from the...
Right.
but I didn't really have... I had support in Korea. I'm not going to say I didn't. But at least the people of color, we weren't really clustered. You know, in America, you will have what they call black cities.
True.
And, it's like you can go there and it's like 70,000 or more black people that are doing well. And you can kind of live there and just forget that you live in this racist society for a little bit if you want
just
to.
blank your mind.
Or even like a group. Urban leagues, different young professional groups, any of those, they provide support. And I didn't have that in America. In dealing with new food and new culture, in Korea, sorry.
So,
with new food and new culture and everything else that came with it. And that's why I would prefer America over Korea. But I am not in love with America either. I, think that we definitely have a lot to address and quickly. So that hopefully, my great-grandchildren will be able to benefit from those changes.
If I may ask you, from the family you come from, are you the only child of your parents?
I am not. I'm actually the baby. Hard to believe. A lot of people, when they talk to me, like, you can't be the baby. I am.
Oh, yeah,
It's me. My brother, I believe he's 28. I know he's only a couple years older than me. And my sister, she is 38. So me and my sister have a big gap. Me and my brother don't have that big of a gap. But yeah, I am not the only child.
So you are from a mother, a parent of three, a mother of 3 kids.
Yes.
So you're not alone in America. That's
No.
So you have your mother there and your father.
Oh, I have many family members.
Right.
My mom was one of, she might be like, she's wrong. I think one of 10.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad is one of 6.
Right.
But on my mom's side, it's just 4 of them living, including my mother. And on my dad's side, they're all still alive.
Right.
And they all have children who are grown, who have children like, I have like hundreds of family.
Right, that's very interesting. But now you have this notion, which I know very well, you have a lot to give.
Yes.
And then if you should find, if I would ask you again, sorry about that. I wanted to ask you, but are you in a relationship? You're married? You have a husband?
I am not. I was in a relationship before I left for Korea, but we had some major differences. I mean, of course, the distance, and I really didn't know when I was going to come back.
Right.
So that was that. We decided to end things.
And how long do you spend in Korea?
I was supposed to be there for a year, but I stayed for 9 months.
Okay, that's good. But then now you have, I can see that you're very uneducated young lady who have a lot to give, if I am not mistaken.
And
But
I
now-
don't know if I mentioned, I'm also halfway through my master's degree right now.
Right.
So I only
You-
have 4 more classes.
So you have your master's,
Right,
which is
next
beautiful. So you're very educated indeed. But now with all this experience you have from America, because a lot still now people from our countries, from Africa, they look at America like this God.
Right.
the-
Oh, and it's not just Africans. When I was in Korea, a lot of people a lot of other cultures look at America in that way. So I can understand it to a certain extent because it's like the outside looking in, but America does a really good job of hiding their issues. We went from a period of like blatant in your face, everything wrong kind of thing to this more like subtle behind the scenes. You have to kind of dig for it. For a person who's not really looking for it, it's hard to find. Even for people who are looking for it, it can be difficult at times. So yes, I think that plays a big role into how people view America and that we're a rich society, and if they find a way over there, that their life will be
different.
It will be different. No, it will definitely be different, but it may not be the best. And I think you can't really know that until you live there or you speak hand on or ask someone one-on-one for an honest opinion about America.
You have traveled wide indeed, but then apart from the Korea where you have been, you've been also here. As in, now you're talking to me from Amsterdam, to be precise. Here in Amsterdam.
I decided after my time in Korea that I wasn't ready to go home yet.
Right.
So I decided to take a 2-month tour through Italy or through Europe. Sorry, this is my 5th country. I've been to Italy. I started in Italy, went to Croatia, Slovenia, Belgium, now the Netherlands, then tomorrow I'll be heading to France, and then Spain, and then Portugal, and then I will be home. So I don't consider myself well-traveled since this is my first time traveling, but I've definitely learned a lot in these few months, and then of course my 9 months in Korea.
Right. You've been in 5 countries. So what has been the difference? How do people treat you here and when you are in America?
This is very conflicting. I feel like in America, I'm treated as an American to a certain extent, but then I'm not because I'm already looked at as inferior because the American government structure was built around me, but not to include me.
Right.
So there's a way like you're kind of in the group, but you're not really. And once you realize that, it's also really, really disheartening.
Right.
And I could say that a lot of Black Americans realize that fairly early, like around. I would say I realized that in elementary school.
Oh. And
you just kind of deal with it. You kind of find ways. We call it code switching, where you not even try to sound white, but you try to sound very, very educated and try not to, take your culture into consideration when you're working around white people because you don't want them to be offended by you or threatened by you and all those things that I feel like no one should have to deal with in their own country.
That's true. But then now around Italy where you went.
In Italy, and what I experienced in other cultures or other countries and their cultures is that initially I am not welcomed because I have very distinct features as a Black person, and they assume that I'm African. Not saying that I'm not, because I'm definitely of African heritage, but like I was born and raised, and when they see me, they're just like, oh, here comes another African. But as soon as I open my mouth and they realize that I don't have an accent or what they're looking for, and they realize that I'm American, everything changes.
So they treat you better.
So they treat me better, which really irritates me because I'm just like, you're not really treating me
because of who
because
I am.
of what I look like. You're really treating me because of your idea of the country I come from. And that makes me mad, especially when I'm around other Africans in these countries and I see them get, you know, discriminated or, you know, treated horribly, and then I come up and they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And people who look like you, I'm like, I have no control over it. I didn't ask for this special treatment. And I feel guilty that I get it and you don't.
And what do you do in that sense?
I mean, it doesn't happen. A lot of times it happens in small instances, but if I see something and I see it actually happen, I will say something. I'm a very outspoken person, and I'll be like, no, well, why couldn't you treat this person the same way you're treating me? And of course, they'll have their own grandiose explanations and whatnot, and it's never justified. Like, there's no way to justify why you're treating me better because I'm American versus another person, because they're not.
Yeah, but then I want to ask you something. With all these knowledge you have gotten for yourself, and the way you intend to go and you know, the whole of it, the notion of it, and the experience you have gotten from your childhood and what you've grown up with and around you, all you have seen, what do you think you have to give to people of color?
Oh man, a lot.
So
it's just
where do you intend to start from?
I'm an educator by profession, so I think that is a really, really big part of it. The school systems in America, and of course, from what I'm hearing and reading in Africa as well, are not the best.
Right.
So I think that is the biggest way that any culture can attack their major issues. Because if you're continuing to teach the same things to the generation behind, it's going to be harder to try to make changes. If they're used to one system and then you introduce another one, it's going to be some friction. So I think the best thing for any country that's having major structural issues is to attack the education system first. Because those children will grow up in that society that you're trying to create, and if they don't have the tools to operate in it or benefit it and make it grow, then you're going to still stay stuck. And I think that's where I should be in education, and not just in the school system, because a lot of times, by the time when you're a teacher, you realize that there's not a lot you can do once you become a teacher, because it's like at the end of the day, you're like at the end of the line. Like what you're doing is just giving the children, or dealing with all the policies that have been put in place by people above you. But teachers, if they decide to, they can definitely band together and make changes to those policies. But it's harder, because a lot of times the teachers are just trying to do their best job with what they've been given, and it's a really, really hard and stressful job to do.
Have you ever taught?
Yes.
Where have you taught? Is it in
America? Was teaching in America. I was really like a teacher's assistant, but I definitely put in a lot of work. I was through a program called AmeriCorps, which is a non-profit organization. And so it has a myriad of programs, but the one I was specifically doing was City Year, and basically we go into schools that are low performing and that have high dropout rates, and we attack the elementary students, middle school and high schools. We try to find ones, the way the systems work in neighborhoods, like they funnel into, so the elementary school, those kids will go to a certain middle school, and then they'll go to a certain high school based on where they live. So we try to get into that system and help those children attack their attendance, behavior, and course performance, so that by the time they get to 9th grade, they're on track to graduate. And it's a really, really hard job. There's a huge dropout crisis in America, and so I did that. I put in over 10 months, 2,000 volunteer hours. And that's in the school day, after school, on the weekends, not just directly with the kids, but helping the communities that they live in. And then, of course, my other experience, I did many, many years of tutoring in the school system after school through Guilford County. I was involved with Habitat for Humanity, Junior League, a lot of nonprofits. I've been in nonprofit pretty much my entire life. So that is my experience in education. And then, of course, in Korea, I was a ESL teacher.
So, but now you want to try and have Africa. Which of the country you have in mind to go
The
to?
countries that I have